I think a lot of times, especially this time of year, we have the discourse of, is the salary cap real? Is it real? I mean, yeah, it's a real thing. It exists. It's something that you do have to pay attention to if you're a general manager and all of that stuff. But does it actually do what it's intended to do? And how exactly does it work? Well, I'm hopeful in this, relatively quick video, I can explain what it is, why it doesn't work the way people think it does, and why it's honestly not actually real. Let's start off with the Buffalo Bills. Their cap space is negative 40 million. They do not have much cap space entering this new season. So you might be looking at it saying, okay, well, then they have to make some tough decisions, right? These are their three highest paid players who aren't named Josh Allen. So, okay, well, what do you do in a video game? You look at these players and usually you try to trade these players. The number next to their name is their projected cap hit for this next season. So if you trade away all three of these players, for example, that would clear up 56 million. You can use the remaining 16 million to fill out your roster. That's what you have to do, right? Well, no, the NFL salary cap works very different than how you might expect, but it is still, I think, relatively easy to understand once you understand it. So let's take Von Miller's contract, for example. 23 million is how much he's projected to make this next season. But remember, contracts in the NFL are not guaranteed like other contracts are, which has its pros and its cons. This is his contract according to Over the Cap. The one that you see that, the first one that has numbers on it is this upcoming season, where if you cut him, you'd be looking at 32 million in dead cap. Remember, he's only projected for around 24 million for his actual cap hit, so you'd actually have to pay him 8 million more in terms of cap hit this year if you got rid of him. However, it would save you money down the line, but that's not really what they're looking for right here, right? They're 40 million over the cap right now. They have to figure out something right now. So what do you do, and how does the cap actually work? Why does it seem like teams that are way over the cap can somehow not have to lose anybody and still be in a good situation? Let's take Josh Allen. Let's use his contract as an example because he has a massive contract and it'll simplify things. What is his contract? What's his projected cap hit upcoming for the rest of his contract? This is what his cap hit is going to be up until 2028, which is the last year on his deal. Okay, those are the cap hits for each year. But remember, these are not set in stone. What if you need to clear 40 million just using Josh Allen's cap hit? You can do it. What you would have to do is you'd have to do it in terms of a signing bonus, where essentially you're reworking the contract. You're making sure that you pay him 40 million right now. Josh Allen's going to say, sure, you can give me the 40 million right now. And then what you do is you can take all of that money out of his 2024 cap hit. Let's just take that completely out. And now his cap hit is just 7 million in this season. And you can go down to about 1 million if you want to. There is a minimum, but it's very low. So you can take out 40 million from someone's cap hit from a specific year. Now, that money has to go somewhere. It has to go towards the cap at a certain point. But signing bonuses, you can choose where you want to put them, which years you want to put them on. So let's just say they make it 10 million more a year for each of the following 4 seasons that he, is playing for. Well, that's really all you have to do. And just like that, you've completely made it work. Now, again, there still are some negative ramifications from this, right? The cap is still real. It still does matter. And to get around the cap, you have to be willing to pay Josh Allen 40 million to make this work. It's money you would have had to pay him anyway, most likely, although maybe some of it wasn't fully guaranteed. But either way, you're going to keep Josh Allen as long as you want. So it's money you would have had to pay him eventually anyway. However, obviously a lot of these rich owners want to be able to make money off of their money and not just give it away right away. So there is only so much you're willing to give out immediately. But this is the core concept and how you can get around the salary cap. But what about his final season? So now let's just say they somehow managed to be under the cap for the rest of the time, or they reworkshopped other deals. So Josh Allen's is the same into 2028, 51 million. What happens here, though? I mean, if you're at this point and you want to rework his deal, well, you're screwed, right? There's no money you can push down the line. Well, no, because for whatever reason, the NFL has something called void years, which means you can pay someone against the cap on a year where they won't be playing. So if we want to take 40 million out of the 2028 cap hit, even if that's the last year of his deal, you can do that. The void would be, $40 million void, which is a lot higher than voids typically be. But you can do this for up to 3 seasons down the line as well. So you don't have to put it all in that 2029 season if you don't want to. You can continue to push it down the line. This is what Tampa Bay did when they went all in with Tom Brady. They had a lot of void years that they're still paying off right now because they were making sure they had, enough talent at the time to try and win as many Super Bowls as they could. But now you're wondering, well, what about after this season? Now Josh Allen has a void on his, a void year, but don't you want to keep Josh Allen? Wouldn't you want to re-sign him? Well, you can. There's no reason why you couldn't. Again, what you would essentially do is just rework the deal, but you're creating a new contract, and just $40 million of that cap hit would be added to Josh Allen. Not $40 million more you have to pay him, just that would be on the books as a cap hit. Remember, you've already paid him that money. Now, you might be looking at all of this and saying, okay, but isn't this kind of a little bit of an obscure situation? Like, is this really something that's constantly happening? Isn't this something that only like the richest of the owners can do and you would do in very, slight situations? The answer is absolutely not. In fact, it's far more rare for a team to not do this than for a team to do this. In 2023, 26 out of the 32 teams spent over the salary cap using this strategy. The Browns themselves spent the most over the cap, which was $64 million over the salary cap. The Bills spent well over $40 million last season, and there's no reason to think they wouldn't do it again. And I think that kind of brings us to, well, what is the point of the salary cap in the first place? For me, I think about the one sport that doesn't have a salary cap, baseball, and kind of the reason why people think there should be like a salary cap and a salary floor is because you have teams spending 3 times as much money as other teams, and it creates a competitive imbalance. And just in general, I think people tend to not like it when a team has an ability to spend more than another team. It just kind of creates an advantage and creates disadvantages for some of the teams that maybe play in smaller markets. But here, the salary cap is not solving that issue whatsoever. Again, like I said, teams are spending well over the salary cap. And the Cleveland Browns last year, who spent $290 million, they spent over $100 million than the Los Angeles Rams, who spent the least last year. Here's why it's not really that big of an issue, though, and why I don't think people are that mad at it, is because think about those 2 teams I just mentioned. The Cleveland Browns are the team that's spending well over the cap, and the Los Angeles Rams are the team that's spending well under the salary cap this year. Like, Los Angeles is a huge market, and Cleveland isn't a huge market. But because it's football, because there's revenue sharing, the teams are making around the same amount of money and have around the same amount of money to pay for players anyway. So it doesn't actually create an issue, and to be honest, I almost feel like it would just be less confusing if they got rid of the salary cap altogether. I think that's what I would say. Either get rid of the salary cap as is, because it doesn't really do a lot as of right now other than create accounting issues for the GMs across the league. And honestly, if anything, I think the salary cap actually gives a benefit to the teams that have more money. The richer teams actually are benefited by the salary cap instead of hindered by the salary cap. I think some simple fixes, like getting rid of void years, to me feels like a pretty easy fix, because then at least if you want to push the can down the road, the bill is going to have to come at a certain point, like you at least have that. But with the void years, you can keep pushing it down the road. Again, the Bills example, they can legitimately do this for the entirety of Josh Allen's career if they have the cash and are willing to do it. Like that's what it comes down to. I also think you could just get rid of restructured contracts, or put limits on what you can do to restructure a contract, right? So that way, once the cap hit is set to be a certain way, then that's what it's set to be. You could also do the hockey thing, which in hockey, what they do is, let's say you're going to make $30 million in the next 3 seasons. In hockey, even if you get all $30 million of that in a signing bonus and then the rest, you get the league minimum and game checks the rest of the way, your cap hit is still going to be locked in at $10 million for each year. Whereas in football, you can change it and you can make it $5 million one year, $15 million the next, stuff like that. Perhaps if you do a fix like that, where the average is just whatever the average is, you can't, do any, finagling that way. There's ways you can fix this and make this better if you want to do the salary cap. But as of right now, again, it's always just more easy to just look at the cash spent than the salary cap itself. If you look at the total cash spent and total cash available, that's usually the better metric to figure out how this works than instead of looking at the cap space. That can often be misleading and easily worked around. So yeah, the cap is real, but it is very much, it does not do what it is intended to do, in my opinion. That's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.